Hey there, everybody. It's Josh the Merc Rainer here, and I am doing a special review series to cover the brand new season of Futurama that just launched on Hulu. I have had the opportunity to see the first 6 episodes early, and I'm going to be, breaking them down, one by one each week as we go. So I'm going to be talking about the first episode today, but I want to just talk a little bit about the show in general. Futurama, that was one of those shows that I watched from the very beginning, from the time that it launched. I think back in 1999, I think is when it was, all the way up until 10 years ago when it seemingly ended for good. And is one of my favorite shows of all time. I absolutely loved that show, and it ended on what I think was probably a perfect ending for the show. So when I found out that it was coming back, a decade later after that perfect series finale, I was worried, very worried. Like, could it hold up to what it used to be? I really wasn't sure. When it first got announced, it wasn't sure if all of the cast would come back, but luckily they did. It would not have been the same without them. And I'm gonna say this right away. After watching the first 6 episodes, the show has not lost a step. It is amazing. It is just like watching the old episodes. It's fantastic to see everything. But we're gonna get into this first episode here. Because I think seeing how they're able to connect these seasons and seamlessly bring them back in, it's a great thing to have seen. Do I worry about how the show will inevitably end for the fourth time? Sure. Can it have another perfect finale? I don't know. It had 2, in my opinion. Way back, I think it was the end of the 4th season. That was where I think that was the original ending, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought it was fantastic. But then the 10th season's finale was just incredible. It blew all that out of the water. So when it eventually ends again, can it be just as good? I don't know, but I'm here for the ride no matter what. All right. So we are going to be talking season 11, episode 1, The Impossible Stream, written by Patrick M. Verone and directed by Peter Avanzino. So for this episode, the summary reads: Fry risks permanent insanity when he attempts to binge watch every TV show ever made. It's an interesting premise, especially, 10 years ago, streaming wasn't really a thing. Binge watching really wasn't, that big of a thing. Unless you had like a DVD, a DVD box set or something like that. And so having this show come in first episode right out the gate and address all the stuff like that, all the streaming type stuff that has happened over the last decade, I think it was a smart choice. But the show picks up literally right at the ending of the finale. 10 years ago, like I said, we had that perfect finale. Fry and Leela end up in frozen time. Fry had, he was going to propose to Leela, and he thought that she didn't show up, but he had been using the professor's time button to freeze time to make it the perfect moment. And so his clock was off, his watch was off, and he attempted to kill himself. He jumped off the Vampire State Building, and he realized she's there, and they try to stop it, and they wind up breaking the button and freezing all of time. It's just the two of them, Fry and Leela, frozen in time forever. And they get to live out their lives. They do everything they've ever wanted to do. They get married and they live until they're old. And they just have their life together. And it's beautiful. And then right at the end of the episode, the professor, he comes back. They thought he had died because they thought he got ripped through time, essentially. And then we find out that he survived, and he was tunneling his way through time to get back to them. And he finally gets back to them and tells them that they can reset everything, but they won't remember anything that happened. They won't remember this life that they had. And at the end of the episode, they decided to go around again, which I thought it was so beautiful. I loved it so much. And so it picks up right there. They fix time. Everything kind of goes back, but we find out it's not 2013. There's not 3013 anymore, but because of the way he had to fix time and everything, it actually pushed them forward 10 years, just like, it would have been if they hadn't gotten canceled and were still running today. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's 3023 instead. And so there's a lot of things. This stuff comes up in some future episodes that I'm not going to get into right now. I think I'm going to do a non-spoiler for the 6 that I watched to kind of like just give a little hints about some of the stuff that's coming. But so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, this seeing them pick right up after that last episode, it was fantastic. And like I said, didn't miss a beat. Goes right back into it. You get all of the same quips from Bender and Zoidberg and everything, and it's just fantastic. And something that I noticed, because I rewatched the finale before I watched this one again for this, the title card. So every time, if you've watched this show, when you get the title card, there's always like a little message at the bottom. And in the last episode, the title card said "Avenge Me" on it. And then when it started up for this new episode, it said "Avenged." So I thought that was a real nice, kind of callback to that. It was really cool. So yeah, Fry, he essentially has like an existential crisis about being in the future for the last 23 years and not having really done anything with his life, so he decides he's going to try to watch every single show that there is out there. And we get this, this is where the whole streaming thing starts to come in. They have a streaming service called Hulu, of course, Futurama's Hulu, gotta love it. And the fact that it's on Hulu, it's, there's obvious why they would go that route, which I thought was cool. But we get to see he opens it up and there's a bunch of these show parodies, essentially, these futuristic versions of shows that we know that are around today, and I wrote some of them down because they were fantastic. We got Stranger Fonts, which obviously Stranger Things, Smelly in Paris, which Emily in Paris, Geiger King, the Clamp Maid's Tale, Clamps, the Scary Mirror, which we do get to see a bit of later on in the episode, which is cool. Blob's Burgers, which was cool. Head Lasso, which is, that's a clever one. It's Always Sunny on Mercury. Can't go wrong there. Greenish, which I thought was cool. Only Murders in the Hoverdome. And my personal favorite, because I do a podcast about the actual show, How I Met Your Smizmar. I thought that was great. It's a lot of fun. And there's a few others on there as well. But it was really cool to just kind of like pause it and take a look at all the different shows that they were making parodies of. So after Fry goes through and he watches all these shows, he says he finished everything that he could watch. But there was one show left, and that is it's a classic for Futurama, and it's All My Circuits, with the always great to watch Calculon. But he's on the final season. Granted, the final season's got like 1,300 episodes apparently, but he's on the final season of All My Circuits, and he's like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And so they introduce him to what they call binging. And, we know what binging is. We sit here and we watch shows, but this is very different. This is where they take these special goggles and they drill them into your brain. And there's even a special suit so that you can just constantly nonstop take in these shows. And I'm sure there's people out there who would love to do that. But yeah, you got to have a break here. And so he streams for months. He does this without a break, and his mind begins to lose touch with reality. And that's kind of a thing that, I mean, this is obviously a very dramatic kind of version of that. You know what I mean? But when binging kind of became a thing, that was a fear for a lot, was you losing yourself in this, just sitting there for hours and hours and hours on end, just losing yourself in it. But you moderation, and that's kind of what this is all about. It's, you doing stuff in moderation. If you overdo it, bad things can happen. And so, like I said, his mind starts to lose touch with reality, starts to kind of almost like sync up with the TV. And they realize that if he reaches the end of the series, he's not going to recover. That's the end for him. So they have to start making new episodes, because the show had been canceled for 10 years. So they really start making a play on Futurama itself. Just like Futurama, All My Circuits, canceled 10 years ago, had been canceled 3 different times, all this stuff. But, it has a fervent fan base, loyal fans out there. And so they have to start making these new episodes, like, essentially live, to stream straight into him. They have to make an hour of content every hour forever if they want him to stay alive. And so how are you going to do this? A show that starred Calculon when Calculon is dead. So if back in the day, Calculon died. Technically he died a couple of times, but he, after the first time, he was resurrected. And then, so like, I think he died. I think it was like poison. I think he was doing like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. He died of poison. And then a year later, Bender resurrected him, and he died again in that set. I think he gets crushed or something and dies again. And so he's in robot hell. We get to see the robot devil. We get to see Calculon. It's really cool to see all this stuff yet again coming through here. And he's resurrected once again. This is his second resurrection, for him. Lucky guy there. And so he has to start putting the show back on, getting back in there. It's really crazy. We also get an in-show commercial for Slurm Zero. We get to see Slurm again, which is cool. None of the flavor, all of the addiction. It was great to see that again. And eventually they have to, start making these shows at double speed, because somehow it got turned up, and it gets real crazy. Everything gets real wild. We get a cool scene with the writer's room, which I thought was interesting because of what's going on right now with the writer's strike. Obviously, this was all written before all of that, written and created, animated and everything before all of that. But there's a scene with the writer's room where the writers essentially like I don't know if they passed out or died or whatever from having to write so much, because they're writing as they're going nonstop. And Bender's like, I can do this, any idiot can write a TV show. And I'm like, oh, that kind of stings a bit more because of this writer's strike, you know what I mean? Because that isn't real, obviously, but that's definitely how Bender would view it. And everything, but I thought it was, an interesting thing to have in there, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get some real interesting coincidental scenes that happen within shows like that. And it doesn't take long, but the robot executives at Hulu decide they're going to cancel the show yet again. So they have to shift Fry's focus from the TV world into the real world. So what they decide to do is to start performing the finale live literally in front of him, so that they can ease him out of the suit and kind of allow his brain to realize that he's in the real world and not just crash and kill him. And a big mishap takes place, causes a fire. Amy ends up like dumping battery acid all over it, trying to put out the fire. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, hilarious, and I love it. But it incinerates the machine and the suit that Fry's in. But then we find out Fry was not actually in the suit. He had gotten out like 2 days prior and went and was reading, but didn't tell anybody. So he's been out of the suit for 2 days. Leela and Bender and all them have been off doing this stuff, worried about him, and none of them knew that he was out of the suit. Not a single person knew, which I thought was pretty crazy. And so that's pretty much, how it ends. Everything's okay. He's fine. He realized the episodes at the end that they were making. He was like, oh, those final episodes were really bad, poorly written, poorly executive produced, which Leela was kind of directing and everything at the end of that. But it was a really fun start to the season. We also got a little tag at the end with Morbo and President Richard Nixon and the chicken lawyer, talking about binging responsibly and all this stuff. So it was a really great first episode into this relaunch for season 11. Like I said, it hit that tone perfectly. It has not lost a step. The humor is all there, everything that you want. And I'm going to tell you this, it only gets better, in my opinion. From the 6 episodes that I have seen, it gets better. And you get more of that. And they really dive into more of what makes Futurama great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the final 4, because it's going to be a 10 episode first half. And another 10, because they're splitting it into 2, which they actually make a joke about that, about how All My Circuits should get a 20 episode pickup with option for another 20 in a possible movie. And it made me wonder, is that what the Futurama deal is? Because they have a 20 episode pickup. And so I'm wondering, do they have an option for a second 20 in a possible movie? Is that a thing that we might actually see? Which would be cool. I'd be down. As you give me as much Futurama as you can, I'll take it all. But yeah, let me know, guys, what all you thought. Hop onto Twitter at @movieblogmerc. Let me know your thoughts on the first episode of the new season of Futurama. And yeah, that's all I got. Be sure to follow me over there on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, Merc with Movie Blog. Subscribe, like the video if you are enjoying what I'm talking about. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. You can always hit that little bell up top to let you know whenever I'm dropping new videos. It's something different. I haven't done content outside of my Last Call at McLaren's, my How I Met Your Mother podcast, in a while. So it's nice to be doing something a little different here. And hopefully this will get me into doing some more stuff. So, yeah, again, check me out on Twitter at @movieblogmerc. And let me know your thoughts on this first episode, everybody. All right. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep watching movies and even TV.